Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλησπέρα σας. Κοντά μας έχουμε την κυρία Κέτη Αλεξάνδρου-Θεοδότου, η οποία θα μας πει δύο λόγια για τη σημερινή ημέρα. Καλησπέρα σας, κυρία Κέτη. Πείτε μας δύο λόγια για τη σημερινή ημέρα.
Χαίρομαι που με έχετε προσκαλέσει στη συνέντευξη αυτή, γιατί είναι πολύ χρήσιμη και για την παροικία και για την Κύπρο. Βρισκόμαστε εδώ πέρα, διότι οι φιλελεύθεροι, οι ελεύθεροι δημοκράτες όπως είναι γνωστοί, μας επέτρεψαν όπως διοργανώσουμε μία συγκέντρωση για το κίνημα, το οποίο είναι πολύ δημοφιλές σήμερα στην Κύπρο, One Cyprus. Βρισκόμαστε εδώ πέρα για να ανακοινώσουμε τους σκοπούς της κίνησης αυτούς σε ένα από τα τρία πολιτικά κόμματα της Αγγλίας. Και αυτό θα προχωρήσει και στα άλλα πολιτικά κόμματα. Υπάρχει μια κίνηση στην Κύπρο που ονομάζεται One Cyprus και η κίνηση αυτή υποστηρίζεται πάρα πολύ από το Φιλελεύθερο και Δημοκρατικό Κόμμα Κύπρου, το οποίο υπάρχει από το 2004, γιατί κάτω από τη σημαία αυτού του κόμματος είχε πολεμήσει στις πρώτες εκλογές του Ευρωπαϊκού Κοινοβουλίου. Όπως ξέρετε, έχουμε τις εκλογές του Ευρωπαϊκού Κοινοβουλίου του επόμενου Ιούνιο και επ' αυτού προετοιμαζόμεθα, όπως κατέλθουν υποψήφοι οι οποίοι θα εξυπηρετήσουν και την παροικία και όλη την Κύπρο. Το κίνημα One Cyprus σκοπεί μία Κύπρος όπως ενώσει το νησί μας, ούτως ώστε Ελληνοκύπροι και Τούρκοι Κύπροι ενωθούν μαζί σε έναν ενιαίο αγώνα για την πρόοδο του νησιού μας. Θέλουμε όπως ξένα στρατεύματα φύγουν από το νησί και όπως υπάρχει μια κοινή κυβέρνηση χωρίς να υπάρχουν διζωνικές κατατάξεις, όπως τώρα σκοπεύεται να γίνει. Επίσης θέλουμε να φέρουμε μια ανισότητα και μια ανισορροπία στο νησί, η οποία δεν υπάρχει επί του παρόντος. Υπάρχουν και εσωτερικές ανομαλίες οι οποίες αποθούν την ένωση του νησιού και στο βορρά και στο νότο. Χρειαζόμαστε όπως δημιουργήσουμε μια δημοκρατική Κύπρο, χωρίς να υπάρχουν πρόνοιες για favoritism, όπως λέμε, όπως ο καθένας λόγω της αξίας του εκλεγεί στα αξιώματα του κράτους και επίσης σε όλες τις τοποθετήσεις που μπορεί να αποταθεί. Το κίνημα One Cyprus πρέπει να προχωρήσει, διότι αυτό είναι η ιστορία της Κύπρου. Η Κύπρος έχει μια ιστορία από τις μεγαλύτερες που υπάρχουν σε όλον τον κόσμο. Έχουμε αρχίσει πριν 15.000 χρόνια και κατά την περίοδο αυτών των χρόνων είχαν εισέλθει πάρα πολλοί κατακτητές στο νησί μας. Σχεδόν όλοι οι γνωστοί πολιτισμοί της Μέσης Ανατολής είχαν εισβάλει στο νησί. Πέρσε, Ασσύριοι, Βαβυλώνοι, από τη Δύση Λουζινιένοι, Βενετοί, Τούρκοι, από την Ανατολή και ούτω καθεξής. Αλλά η Κύπρος παρέμεινε Κύπρος, διότι όλοι αυτοί οι λαοί έχουν απορροφηθεί από το νησί. Και πώς έχουν απορροφηθεί? Τους ανεχτήκαμε να γίνουν ένα μαζί μας. Το ίδιο θα προσπαθήσουμε όπως γίνει και σήμερα, να μην χωρίζεται το νησί μεταξύ του μουσουλμανικού ή του χριστιανικού καθεστώτος, να γίνει ένα νησί, μια ισότητα για όλους. Γιατί αυτή η ανισότητα η οποία υπήρχε προηγουμένως δημιούργησε τις ταραχές τις οποίες έχουμε ήδη μαρτυρήσει το 1974 και προηγουμένως. Αγωνιζόμαστε πολύ σκληρά ούτως ώστε γίνει μια ενιαία νήσος. Γιατί αν δεν ενωθεί το νησί, το απότερο μέλλον είναι ούτως ώστε ένα μέρος του νησιού θα είναι μέρος της Τουρκίας και αυτό ποτέ δεν το θέλουμε. Επίσης υπάρχει ένα ανελεύθερο πολιτικό καθεστώς στην Τουρκία, του κυρίου Erdogan, το οποίο φυλακίζει την αντιπολίτευση, έχει φέρει δικτατορικούς νόμους και έχει στρατεύματα στην Κύπρο, επί των οποίων επισκοπεί όπως δημιουργήσει μια βάση. Οι Τουρκοκύπροι, όπως γνωρίζω, αντιτίθενται στα στρατεύματα αυτά και θαυμάζουμε τον κύριο Sener Levent, ο οποίος με την αντίστασή του και ιδιαίτερως με τον αγώνα του, όπως πάρει στο δικαστήριο τον κύριο Erdogan για τα ανελεύθερα μέτρα τα οποία χρησιμοποιεί, έχει γίνει ήρωας του νησιού. Και θέλουμε όπως ο κύριος Sener Levent εκλεγεί στο Ευρωπαϊκό Κοινοβούλιο. Θα του προσφέρουμε κάθε βοήθεια και κάθε υποστήριξη η οποία του αξίζει. Επίσης θα εκλεγούσουν ως υποψήφιοι μας, θα έχουμε υποψήφιους από την νεολαία, από τα νέα παιδιά. Και ότι η Κύπρος χρειάζεται καινούριο αίμα. Πρέπει να πάψουν οι κλίκες των πολιτικών κομμάτων που υπάρχουν πριν 60 χρόνια να υφίστανται και σήμερα. Μία Κύπρος σημαίνει μία αρχή, μία καινούργια αρχή, μία αναγέννηση για το νησί με δημοκρατικές ιδέες και με ισότητα, η οποία θα μας βοηθήσει στο να προχωρήσουμε χέρι με χέρι με όλες τις λαούς που υπάρχουν στην Κύπρο χωρίς φιλετικές διακρίσεις επί του θέματος της ελευθερίας, της ισότητας και της δικαιοσύνης. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Dr. Catherine Alexander-Theodotou. I'm a Cypriot advocate and an English solicitor. To your surprise, I'm also the global human rights lawyer because of my work in Iraq and Syria in the front lines, as a result of which a small group of selected lawyers selected me for having this role. Obviously, I am here to speak not about Iraq and Syria, where there is a great deal of tragedy. I've seen with my eyes the butchering of innocent people on account of the interest of the petrol, to which I seriously objected. That is why I abandoned my office and my comfortable house in order to be there to assist people who needed me and to be exposed to a lot of risk. And I'm here to speak about my little island, Cyprus, which had been submitted in the past exactly in the same situation, in the same tragedies. Cyprus, as you all know, is a beautiful island in the Eastern Mediterranean, and since antiquity it has been known to be the island of Aphrodite. Aphrodite is a goddess of beauty, and the island is also very beautiful. It's also been known for a lot of us to be an island of most beautiful wine. And they say, as a joke, that the Sultan conquered Cyprus because of its most beautiful wine. Maybe true or not true, but we know, we tasted the Cyprus wine, there's plenty in the market here, it's absolutely tasty. Cyprus existed over 15,000 years with a very rich history, starting first of all with the Pelasgian civilization down to the present time. Cyprus, because of its strategic position in the Middle East, had become the target of continuous invasions because of its military position. We had almost all the peoples of the Middle East crossing over to the island. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Phoenicians, name it. And from the west, we had the Venetians, the Lusignians, the Knights of the Temple, the British, and also we had from the east as final invasion, the Turks, right? Cyprus, despite all these invasions, existed and will still exist because it's got one big secret. We absorb the populations that come into the island. How do we absorb them? We become one with them. We welcome them. So under the present situation, where a lot of propaganda is put by a lot of people, that there is a tribal decision, there is a decision of distinction between the Turks and the Greeks. It's all made of propaganda. I grew up in Cyprus and I had most of my friends, a lot of very good friends were Turks. But the politics of great powers intervened, as a result of which they created a divided island. In 1974, a coup d'etat took place, which was manipulated to take place, and we know because we have now the secret envelope, as we say, of Cyprus, which is open, and we know why this invasion and the coup d'etat came about, because Makarios refused to give some basis to the Americans for some objective strategic decisions in the Middle East. But before this invasion, there was the famous Constitution of Zurich. It's a constitution which divided the island into categories of Turks and Greeks, etc. So a lot of mistakes were made, and we became the victim of those mistakes. We do not want to go back to the history and repeat what happened in the past. Our movement, One Cyprus, aims to go ahead, to build a future for everybody living in the island. We want to see Greeks and Turks as one people, the Cypriot people. We welcome every nationality on the island. There are 96,000 English people living in the island because they love the climate and they love to live there. It's like going to another home, to another village, is very familiar to the people who welcome them. There are 75,000 Russians living on the island in Limassol who welcome them. There are Jewish people living on the island, we welcome them. So we welcome every single population who lives on the island, because Cyprus is an international island. It's in the middle of the Middle East, there where is a crossroads of the east and west, north and south. And if we were saying we cannot really accept these populations, you must be crazy or totally uncivilized. We accept it, and we are very liberal about the people living there. So we want to see an island where everybody, as the leaflet says, who lives in the island have equal rights, and they have the right to be elected. If, for example, an English person wants to become the president of the republic and he's worthy and he's got all the abilities to be elected, if a Turk wants to become a president to be elected, everybody who lives on the island to have equal rights with everybody else. Because Cyprus is there to serve everybody. It's an island with an exceptional situation and an exceptional history. So we don't want to see the island divided anymore. So we started a movement in which we want to stop the crossing points. We don't want to have checkpoints to go from north to south. We want to see everybody to move freely from one end of the island to another. We want everybody to have the right of movement within the island. Cyprus, as you know, is also a member of the European Union. Obviously, it is the southern part which is obeying the directives of the European Union. The north is also part of geographically a member of the European Union, but they have not adopted the directives and the regulations and the laws of the European Union because of Turkey. As you know, Turkey is also under the command of Mr. Erdogan, who is acknowledged by everybody to be a dictator. He fought an election recently, a general election where he was re-elected, and the leader of the opposition was in prison. So I do not know what kind of election was that when the leader of the opposition is in prison. He also uses violence against his opponents, and the people are afraid to speak in Turkey. I've been to Istanbul 3 times last year for various reasons, and people were afraid even to raise the issue of their freedoms. And it's a shame, because Turkey is a modern nation, and it would be a good idea also to be accepted within the European Union, because if it is within the European Union, then they'll be able to speak to each other in a more progressive way. Unfortunately, under the present regime, this is rendered a bit impossible. When I was in the Middle East, we have observed and we have evidence that he was given assistance to the fanatics by giving them weapons, and in return he was receiving petrol. So a man like him is not there for the good either of his country or for the good of the rest of the world. So Erdogan is establishing a basis in the north of Cyprus, a military basis, which is a very dangerous thing to observe, because he may decide to invade the rest of the island. Okay, all right, Cyprus is a member of the European Union, but how quickly could our European allies come to defend us? The Turkish Cypriots in the north, they are objecting to it. We have in the north a very brave Turkish man called Sener Levent. Now, you probably heard about him. He is the director of a newspaper called Africa, and he's been attacked many times by the so-called grey wolves, that is a sort of paramilitary group of the Erdogan's followers. Recently, his newspaper was being destroyed. They almost killed him, and he had the enormous courage that he's taking now Erdogan to the courts in the north of Cyprus. An unprecedented, very brave act. We are supporting Mr. Sener Levent to be elected to the European Parliament because he deserves to be there. He will be a Turkish person with a free voice, speaking for one island, speaking for Cyprus. And it would be good for the rest of the European community to know that a man who's been on the death line to be executed by a dictator is there in the European Union speaking about the freedom and the liberties of Europe. So this movement is to promote an equality for everybody and to open the ways that people are not having borderlines and checkpoints, and they remember the past of what happened. Because we know there have been a lot of atrocities, both the Greeks and the Turks. They all committed their atrocities. Civil wars are the worst in the history of humankind. And we do not say they've done everything bad and we've done nothing. Both sides, under the influence of certain political leaders, committed a lot of faulty acts. We want to forget all about this and to build a new future. I go frequently to the north of Cyprus, and I have made a great many friends there who share our own opinion. Recently, there was a demonstration of 8,000 Turkish Cypriots all wanting the evacuation of the Turkish troops from the island and asking for the unity and the freedom of the island. Most of the Turkish Cypriots in the island have relatives here in England. They have a lot of relatives living in Haringey. You probably go there and see these beautiful restaurants, the lovely food they have, and they have also their place in Cyprus. So they are very much influenced by democratic countries such as this, and they don't want to have an army in the island to rule them in the way that this is happening in Turkey. So for the sake of this, we decided that we should be very active on the point of coming here to the Liberal Democratic Party to voice our voice. We are also liberals in Cyprus. We're supporting the liberal movements because it is a movement for the freedom, liberation and equality. And we are very much biased to this party, as a matter of fact. So in the last European election in 2004, we had quite a few people from the Liberal Democratic Party coming to support us in the election, and we hope to see the same support now. We want to hear from you your views, but before we do that, I would give you over to my young friend, who is a lawyer as well, because we want to see new blood, move out from the old generation to be involved, a new generation with new ideas and ideas of unity. So, Konstantinos, if you'd like to say a few words, to be grateful.
Okay, on behalf of the new generation of Cyprus, basically I just want to let you know that Cypriots, the whole population of Cyprus, they are fed up with the political parties that they are present right now, with all the lies. There's no trust in Cyprus right now with the new government that it was there for the last session as well. Something needs to change with all the new propagandas, with all the propagandas of the left parties and the right parties. Instead, because we are a small island, instead of uniting together these political parties, they're just basically fighting each other. This party is basically here, we just introduced this party in order to try and unite people from Cyprus in order to vote something different. With our party, we hope, there's a hope in a way, because we can actually do a change, and with the new generation we can do this change. Things needs to change in Cyprus. Turkish Cypriots, for example, they have no identity. That's not really nice for anyone. I mean, it's not fair. They're people that they were born in Cyprus in the north, unfortunately, and the Turks, they don't see them as one of them. The Cypriots, the Greek Cypriots do not see them as they are. So basically, what about these people? They are humans. They have souls. They are Cypriots. So for me, basically one Cyprus, it's one Cyprus, a united Cyprus, one Cyprus that will actually do the change. And I believe with the support of the Liberal Democrats in the UK, because I believe we have a lot of similar views, we can make the change. We can really make the change. All we need is a little bit support from you guys. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Very nicely said. Thank you. Yes. We now open the debate to you on the floor, because obviously it's important to hear your own views. So if anybody wants to say anything, yes.
Mine isn't really a view, mine's a question.
Yeah.
I'm ignorant of the history here. So
Yeah.
what have the diplomatic overtures been to try and achieve reform of the border between 63, I guess, to now? What's the history there?
The 63. What happened in 1963 is that the Constitution of Zurich collapsed, because the Constitution stated that if, for example, the Greek side of the parliament introduced a legislation and the Turkish side of the parliament disputed that legislation, then you couldn't get anywhere. As a result of which, we couldn't agree into anything, and this led to an economic problem, the result of which we had the Turkish barricading themselves in the villages of Lefkas, starting the first military sort of situation with the support of the Turkish army, which gradually created the conflict between the two sides. Yeah. And obviously, both sides have got their fanatics. And once the war starts between the two people, it gets worse and worse. There were a lot of people murdered from both sides. 1963 created the Green Lines with the United Nations, trying to guard, to stop all this between. And that was the result of the Zurich Constitution. A constitutionalist lawyer called De Schmidt described the Constitution of Zurich as being the most silly and irrelevant constitution that ever existed, because this constitution divided the people instead of uniting them. It wasn't really correct and right to give it to the island as such. We also made mistakes, because in 1959, Lord Radcliffe suggested that you have a constitution, a liberal constitution within the Commonwealth, and then you stay together for 10 years. Then after the 10 years, then you could decide whether you want to be on your own, whether you want to be, and we rejected it. That was silly. And then we went over to sign the Zurich Constitution. That was a mistake that we have done. And this is lack of political experience as such. I'm one of the people who objected also that someone who is the head of the church couldn't be at the same time be the head of the political state, because a church sometimes could help to divide people, right? So it happened, because historically the church was always involved in the Cypriot politics, managed to get that position. It would have been better to have a civil, non-priest leader, and such. And of course, those who objected were made enemies of the state. We've all been through that experience, but now we are in the situation we are. We're not going to go back to history. We know the reasons why everything became a mess, the constitution, the wrong people being involved. And as my colleague said there, we've got people who rule the country today. The one is a very right wing, the other is that, and they have created a situation that we get nowhere, not even a step further. You need to get the two communities talking to each other, because the politicians are looking after their own interests. They love to stay in power, and staying in power divide the island. We like to see the two communities coming closer together. That's what we are doing. We're getting the two communities discussing matters together, realizing, and gradually that has gained a great deal of ground. As you could see, I mentioned Mr. Sener Levent, who is putting a very brave fight against Erdogan, whom my movement wants to promote as a European candidate, to fight for the European elections and have him in the European Parliament, because he deserves to be there. He doesn't have to be a Greek Cypriot. He's a Cypriot. He's a Turkish man. He's a Cypriot. Yes.
There was a dictatorship, and that there was a movement to unite the Greek side of Cyprus with the Greek mainland, and that as a result of I've forgotten what there was a word for that.
Enosis.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as a result of that, I thought as a result of that, the Turks invaded the north to stop this happening.
Yeah. Well, this is really the wrong. I'm speaking as a neutral person myself here. What happens? Greece fell under the dictatorship of the junta in 1967, because if the Americans found objections, like for example the Papandreou government objected to Crete and other places to be used as American bases, and then they moved up the generals. That was the policy of the State Department at that time.
Yeah.
So the junta came into power, and subsequently the junta decided that they want to play a much more important role in Cyprus.
Yeah.
So they started dividing the island, you know. They were putting bombs, you know, the paramilitary, etc., everywhere, and they wanted to overthrow the legitimate government.
Yeah.
Now, Samson was a former EOKA fighter. He was one of these extremists who fought for the enosis of Greece, enosis with
Yeah.
Greece. But the majority of the people were not of the same mentality. So when the Turks invaded Ireland, under the Constitution of Zurich, they used the Constitution of Zurich, which said that if one country invades the island, then another country must do exactly the same. So, and the major power in the play was Great Britain, you know. So the role of Great Britain was not played at that time, because Great Britain had the right to enter and restore the government, you know, the legitimate government. So, which they did later.
Yeah.
So the Turks used that as an excuse to invade the island and not to protect their own population, because I happened to be there, and there were 7,000 people killed in 1 week. The Cypriots never saw any war before, you know. They never knew what it meant to be bombed. We never had an army. Cyprus never had an army, had a police force at that time, right? So to find all this slaughter of the island, I personally myself, if you read the Lawyer magazine, had to go to the north with Major Berish in order to bring back 600 kids who were caught into enemy lines, you know, and whose life was threatened. So there were a lot of atrocities committed, and the whole lot is a mistake of the Constitution of Zurich.
Yeah.
It was the wrong constitution to have about. It's like today the Brexit in Britain.
Yeah.
Some politicians go over because they want to be re-elected, and they get the Brexit, you know, vote, etc., and they still continue, which is very wrong for this country.
Is your organisation a bit like the Alliance Party in Ireland? I don't know if you know the Alliance Party.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the sense it was a non-sectarian party,
Yes.
but it has a certain amount of support, but it's never really got the support of both sides of the...
No, it's different,
Mm.
because we have Turks in our party as
Right.
well. We receive a lot of support. Also, we differ in this, that although a lot of people object to some of the Turks who came from Turkey to establish themselves there,
Yeah.
we believe those who were born there
Yeah.
and who live in the island now, must be 35, 40 years old, have the right to stay there.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so we've got new ideas, more constructive ideas, more democratic ideas. I'm a great believer in the European Union, and I believe that everyone who lives in Cyprus, who is a member of the European Union, must have the right to live there and to circulate all over here under the free movement. So the principles and the directives of the European Union allow us to create a movement which is for the unity of the island. We've been to the European Parliament many times and to receive a great deal of support from European parliamentarians on this.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
we make no difference, you know, whether one is Turk, Greek, English, Russian, or not. Everybody who lives on the island has exactly the same rights and the same privileges like any other Cypriot. Don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. No, we should go from the beginning. Yes.
Just a little few questions about your organisation. First
Yeah.
of all, when was it set up? What's your membership? What's the split between the North Cyprus membership and the southern? Well,
No, it's all one membership. We don't have North Cyprus membership or South Cyprus. It's
But
all
you must have a
one.
rough idea of the...
We have a lot of supporters. As I said, we intend to get Mr. Sener Levent to be elected, which means that he receives enormous support from the Turkish Cypriots. Right. We don't have any differences between, I'm a Cypriot, so let's say we support by 8,000 people in the north who are with Sener Levent,
Yeah, I was just
or
trying to
even
get
more.
some
Yes,
sort of idea
yes,
of the,
yes. We
the
do
split
have.
of support between the
No.
North and the South in your organisation.
In my organization, all the people are one. We've got English people as well, you know, who live in the island and support it. So there is no split. It's what I could call is an even support. Also, as I said before, a lot of Turkish Cypriots in the island are living in this country as well. And 98% of the Turkish Cypriots have got also Cypriot passports. You know, they have already obtained Cypriot passports and Cypriot IDs. So in that way, there is no division between, you know, in a way.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, pleasure.
I live in Haringey, so
Yes.
thank you for setting up the party.
Yes,
Otherwise, I wouldn't.
yes.
I just wondered if there were, I'm cautious to go down this route, using the word referendum, but if
Yeah.
there were a referendum today in Cyprus
Yeah.
about unification, how do you think that would go?
Yeah.
And what's the relationship in the diaspora, so here, between the different parties who are affected by the conflict
Yes.
in Cyprus?
What happens with regard to referendum? To have a referendum, it means the Turkish army must go out of the island. Because so long as there is an army in the north, the Turks in the north will be frightened to vote. Because there are 45,000 first rank troops. You know, when you go to the north, you could see the political campuses all over the place. So if the army is out of the island and there is a referendum, I could guarantee you over 99% of the people would vote for the unification of the island. Here in this community, the Turks and the Greeks, look at Haringey. They live together side by side. They help each other, they work in each other's. Here, if there was a referendum with the community, it would have won. But the referendum must be in Cyprus. And in order to have a referendum, the troops must be out.
So I think that's quite interesting. So you're saying that in this country, the Turkish Cypriot community and the Greek Cypriot
Yeah, they're
community
together.
act as a Cypriot.
Yes, as a Cypriot. I've been to a lot of meetings. You know, they have businesses together, work together. I employ in my legal office here in London a Turkish bar, etc. We have no differences whatsoever, because they are aware of the influence of the army, you know, because people are afraid of their own lives as well. You know, Erdogan has got a lot of political prisoners all over the place. One of the reasons that the African newspaper was attacked is because Mr. Sener Levent said 24 people were in prison in Turkey, and it was announced that they burnt in a fire in the prison. And what Mr. Sener said, it wasn't a fire by accident. It was an intentional fire. And therefore they sent all these grey wolves in order to kill the man, and because he spoke the truth. So in order to have any referendum, you've got to be free. I mean, look at the referendum we had for the Brexit here. Even that referendum was polluted with a lot of bad propaganda. You know, imagine what happens if you have an army on top of that, you know. Yes.
Thank you for this paper. I've had a read through it. It was really interesting. But reading this, sorry, going back a bit,
Yeah.
there were proposals quite recently, or there was work quite recently between the governments of the north and the south to look at unification.
Yes.
I think they've stalled recently.
They stalled, yes.
But I think some of the proposals in that were suggesting a kind of federal system where there would still be a North Cyprus and a Southern Cyprus, but that would work together in a unified
common
state.
United government, yes.
So are you opposed to those proposals, or are
I'm
you
not
in favour
opposing
of
to
those?
the proposal so long as the Turkish army is out of the island.
Sure.
Because one of the reasons why those negotiations stalled is because Turkey said, I would keep the army there so long as it takes, you know, and that is not fair. So these negotiations stalled in that respect.
Sure.
And these negotiations were under the United Nations, General Secretary of the United Nations. Yes, we don't mind them having their own government. If we want to have a separate federal government and not a federal government with a central government in between, actually we suggested there should be a rotating presidency so that you could have a president who is Turk or a president who is Greek or whatever. It makes no difference, as I said in that leaflet. President could be English, could be Russian, could be anybody, because anybody who lives on the island has the right to that office or any office if that person is based on his own competence and ability, you know, and inspires the confidence of the people, and he's democratic, you know, because having gone through the various propositions of the United Nations, everybody in the island, Turk and Greek, knows what is going on, and we know why everything is faulty. You know, I do not know if tomorrow the government in Turkey, because of the great economic situation they are, the difficulties that they have, and the great pressure they have from abroad, from America, for example, etc., collapses, and the leader of the opposition, who is in prison, comes into power, who happens to be a Kurd, by the way, then a lot of things could change. A lot of things could change. Probably we'll see also the establishment of a Kurdish nation, which will introduce the balance of power in the Middle East, which is not a bad idea, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, so a lot of things depends on what happens in Turkey as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just interested in that point in general because I'm from Scotland, so that's an example of where you can have separate government in different parts of this island, but still have a united.
Well, as I said there, England is an example. You know, UK is an example. Great Britain is an example because you have this sort of government in Scotland, this and that, etc. I've been to Scotland many times and I spoke to some of the Scottish parties there, and I respect very much what is happening there, and I am very enthusiastic that they voted to stay in the European Union.
Yes, me
which
too.
is great.
About the gentleman that said about the referendum, basically right now I agree with her. Most people will say yes to the unification, but in order to do something correct in a way, it needs a lot of research, and people need to be informed and about the pros and the cons. We don't want another, in a way, Brexit happening right here. We want people to vote exactly what they know what they're voting about, basically. And I believe if the Cypriot government and the North Cypriot government actually sit down together and discuss the pros and the cons and actually share it to the whole world, people will actually support the referendum.
Yeah, well, they support the referendum when I say, but the North and Mid-Turkish League cannot sit down and say, I want the referendum, because Erdogan will say, go out, have somebody else, you know, or send the grey wolves to his door. So the army is the problem. The Turkish army is the problem. A lot of it depends now what happens in Turkey, because I think we're going to see in the next 6 months certain events. You know, the economic situation is collapsing every day. You know, there is a great deal of outcry in the European Union, for example. They've been discussing the fact that there are all the politicians in Turkey are in prison. The leader of the opposition is in prison. And this man has been elected as the president without any opposition. You know, what is happening to that? You probably heard that 26 Kurds were executed, young Kurds. So I could say, because I spent time in Iraq, and obviously I know how the Kurds are treated, etc., because the Kurds have got the right to be free and to be safe like anybody else. Previously, they were subjected to the violence of Saddam. Now, Saddam is gone, there's still enmity against the Kurds, and then you've got Syria. They were given some freedoms now, but they were victims. In the Iran today, quite a lot of Kurds are prisoners. They're not allowed to exercise their own culture and the rest. Now, in Turkey, it's even worse. And I believe that in addition to the fact that Turkey, under this regime, is an illiberal country, we've got to think also the minorities in Turkey. And the Kurdish minority is a very important minority. And I'm a great supporter of the freedom of this minority and the independence of this minority, of great civilization, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Tell us why you're here today. You are not a Cypriot, right?
No, I'm not a Cypriot, but I've been involved with this question on Cyprus since 1976. I've been a member of the International Student Movement for the United Nations, an NGO for the UN, and since then I have taken a great deal of interest in what is happening in Cyprus. I'm very ashamed to see that so many people had died in the uprising in 1974. To see the island divided is a great shame. There should be no reason for the country to be divided. It should be united. The young people of Cyprus want it united from both sides, and that's what I'd like to see.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your support to Cyprus.
You're welcome.
Γεια σας, πείτε μας το όνομά σας και ποιος ο ρόλος σας σήμερα εδώ πέρα.
Γεια σας, το όνομά μου είναι Konstantinos Avramidis. Ήρθα να υποστηρίξω αυτόν το κόμμα το καινούριο που γίνεται. Χρειαζόμαστε την υποστήριξη όλων. Βασικά η Κύπρος αυτή τη στιγμή βρίσκεται σε μια σύγχυση από τους Κύπριους, επειδή χάσαν όλη την εμπιστοσύνη των πολιτικών, δεξιά και αριστερά, και αυτό το πολιτικό party που γίνεται προς το παρόν είναι ουσιαστικά να προσπαθήσει να πει στους Κύπριους ότι υπάρχει αλλαγή, μπορεί να γίνει μια αλλαγή, η οποία θα δει το νησί μας με μια ένωση ουσιαστικά Τουρκοκύπροι, Ελληνοκύπροι, που θα μπορούν να ζουν αρμονικά στον ίδιο τόπο. Αυτό.
Σε ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ, να είστε καλά.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.